Hi there, I'm Darren Hardy, publisher of Success Magazine, and sitting with me today is one of those kind of geniuses that when you read about them, like in the pages of Success Magazine, you think, man, wouldn't I love to pick that guy's brain? Well, we have the opportunity to do that right now. Dr. Peter Diamandis is the chairman and CEO of the X Prize Foundation, which leads the world in designing and launching large incentive prizes to drive radical breakthroughs for the benefit of humanity. He's also the co-founder of Singularity University, and all that barely begins to touch on the entrepreneurial accomplishments. Peter, welcome to Success. Delight to have you here.
My pleasure,
Thanks
Darren.
for being with us. So it seems that your goal is to challenge the way that things work and to bring hope to what the future holds for humanity. I'm curious, what drives you to do this?
Yeah, we're living in a day and age where small teams of individuals empowered by what I call exponentially growing technologies, the technologies that all of us have access to, whether we know about it or not, we do. Artificial intelligence, robotics, synthetic biology, incredible computational capabilities. And these are tools that can allow an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, an individual to do what only large companies and governments could do before. We're literally empowered now to stop complaining about problems and start solving them. And I get excited about that. And I see that over and over again through, the 15 companies that I've started, through my work at X Prize Foundation at Singularity University. I see extraordinary people changing the world every day. And I want to share these practices with folks.
So what motivated you to start the X Prize Foundation? And then tell me, what's the goal for it as well? What were you doing before? Because I know it's an incredible story. It's a incredible story. So tell us what kind of motivated you originally.
Well, since my childhood, I've wanted to fly into space. I grew up the tail end of Apollo, watching Star Trek, drinking all the Tang I could get. And it was like, for me, my mission on Earth has been to help move humanity off the planet to the stars. And I have started companies like Space Adventures. We take people to the space station privately. Another company called Zero Gravity Corporation that allows people to float in zero G. Another company called Planetary Resources that we take. We're reinventing technology to go out there and actually mine precious metals and minerals from asteroids. And so all of this has been my driver of opening up the space frontier. But I wanted to go myself. And I realized that my chances of becoming an astronaut were really 1 in 1,000. If you look statistically, the number of people who actually applied to NASA's astronaut program and actually got selected to go. And I said, can I help create the private industry to take us there? And I was thinking about, how do you do that? And I read one day that Charles Lindbergh, back in 1927, way long ago, actually crossed the Atlantic to win a prize, a $25,000 prize, an incentive prize. And that got me learning about incentive prizes. And could I create a prize that would incentivize entrepreneurs to build private spaceships that would take the rest of us there? And that ultimately became the $10 million X Prize, launched a multi-billion-dollar industry. And today, any of us can buy tickets to go to space.
So what's the goal for X Prize?
So the goal for X Prize is to find those problems on the planet that are stuck, where there are market failures, where people say, why isn't it like that? What could possibly be? Why can't we do better? And when we find an area like that, which we could drive a radical breakthrough for the benefit of humanity, we design a very clear objective goal. The first person to achieve that goal, we put a large amount of cash, could be $1 million, could be 10, could be 30 million, eventually might be $100 million prizes. And we say, I don't care where you went to school, what you've ever done before. You solve that problem, you win. And so, on this planet today, we have just over 2 billion people connected on the internet. And there are some genius out there that you might not ever back, you might not ever invest in because you don't know where they are, what their background is, but you put up a clear goal, and if they learn about it, they'll compete, they might win it, and then all of a sudden it's like looking for a needle in the haystack, the needle comes to you.
What I love about you, Peter, is here how many kids grew up thinking, I want to go to space, inspired to be an astronaut, and yet you decided to do something about it. Or people look at the world and go, there's all these problems, there's all these things that are wrong with what's going on in the world, and you're the guy that says, we can solve it. Like, you don't see anything as impossible, you see it as, how do we solve it? What if? And so that's incredibly inspiring to tackle problems like this. And I love the idea of almost crowdsourcing, essentially, the solutions to our problems.
And it is, and I have 100% conviction that all these problems are solvable. There's no question at all. Every single problem we have can be solved with the right people, the right technology, and the right capital. It's really, how do you muster that together? I mean, show me a problem, whether it's global warming issues, whether it's cancer, whether it's global literacy. All of these issues are just a matter of time and a matter of focusing it. And if we can really bring the right people, give them the tools and the capital, these kinds of breakthroughs can happen.
So I wanted everybody to be inspired by the amazing things that you're doing on the planet. But some people still might be going, I don't have that chutzpah to go out there and accomplish those kinds of feats myself. But I do want them to sort of draw something from who you are and what you've learned about achievement and success and say, I can apply that to my business, to my company, to my leadership, what have you. So you have these 27 laws that you call the creed of the persistent and passionate mind. And one of those is that the world's most precious resource is the passionate and committed human mind. So talk to us about that for a moment. I mean, those that are listening, regardless of whether they want to go and solve the world's biggest problems, but they still want to go and solve their problems. Yeah. What would you suggest?
So attitude is everything. It really is. If you believe there's no way that you're going to win, the way you approach it is just off. It's just wrong. If you believe you can, then you got a shot. The old saying, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right in both ways. And so whatever your problem is, no matter how big or small it is, when you go and speak to somebody about it, and you're coming with a conviction that this is a problem I have, I'm going to solve it, I need your help, you can help me, it's very different than I'm really screwed, I wish I could, I have no idea what you're willing. Yeah. I mean, basically, attitude and how you come across is going to infect the other individual's mindset as well. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, doing anything in the world is about convincing other people to stand with you, to join with you, whether it's getting their capital, their resources, their help, their permission. And people love to back winners. So it really is in getting into the right successful frame of mind.
So I want to focus on Law 25.
Okay.
And that is fail early, fail often. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that you don't just sort of embrace failure as part of the process. It's the minefield failures, but you have to actually pursue failure because it's, as Watson of the previous president of IBM said, the key to success is massive failure. So talk to us about, from your perspective, this Law 25, fail early, fail often.
So it really is the Silicon Valley mindset, which is the notion that I don't really know what the end product is going to be. Because if you go in to start a company, a service, a product, whatever it might be, and you're absolutely sure you know what it is, and you go and you spend millions of dollars and years building that thing, at the end of the day, when you unleash it, it may or may not be the right thing. And your customers may or may not want it. And so there's a friend of mine, Eric Ries, who wrote The Lean Startup. Mm-hmm. And he talks about giving birth to your idea with a minimally viable product, which is what is the thing that you can create which is just enough to test at the marketplace. And the market will give you the real true feedback of, this part I love, this part I hate. So, okay, you discard this and try this part and start building on it. So can you iterate literally in hours or at least in days, not in months or years, to try your product, try the next iteration. So you're literally creating version, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, on a hourly or daily centric version. And that's what the internet allows so well. In the old days in the marketing, you would basically put an ad in and try 5 different titles and see which title would draw more customers. Well, you can do that now a lot faster. Yeah. And you can start doing it with a lot of products because 3D manufacturing, computer modeling software allows you to iterate much more quickly. And let the customers tell you what they want.
Right. So most of our audience are entrepreneurs, people who are self-employed, self-responsible for their income. So talk to us about your vision of the entrepreneurial landscape, because we are seeing sort of the industrial age corporate monolith still crumbling, and the unemployment is still out there. And my view is that really the pathway for the future is kind of how we started it as a country, which is most people were entrepreneurs, had their own trades, their own farms, their own businesses of sorts. And so there's this great reversion, not revolution, but it's great reversion. So talks about what you see when you look at over the horizon to 2020 and beyond for entrepreneurship. I mean, inspire the entrepreneurs listening to put a little fire in their belly to go, I got to get busy because this is an incredible future.
It really is. I mean, there is no better time in the history of humanity to be an entrepreneur than right now. I mean, really, I am thrilled about the potential I have as an entrepreneur and all my friends have. I mean, I write about this in my book, Abundance, The Future's Better Than You Think, and I talk about in detail the technologies that are available, literally the fact that the world's biggest problems, the problems that affect billion-person markets, are really the biggest opportunities for entrepreneurs. You have the ability today to create what I call a 10 to the 9th plus company. A company that has the ability to touch the lives of 1 billion people in a positive way. You know, you think about the fact that we all know of entrepreneurs who start a company. My friend Chad Hurley starts YouTube on his credit card. And, 18 months later sells it to Google for $1.4 billion. Groupon goes from zero to startup in to $6 billion in valuation in 2 years. One of my favorite examples of the juxtapositioning between a linear company and an exponential company is, think of it as Kodak in 1996 had 140,000 employees with a $28 billion market cap. In 2012, Kodak is bankrupt. In the same year, another company that's in the digital photographic business, Instagram, is acquired by Facebook for $1 billion with 13 employees. Now,
that's the changing tide.
The kicker is that, Kodak invented the digital camera that put them out of business, but they failed to recognize the power of exponential growth. And they said, this digital camera stuff, it's for kids. It's a toy. It wasn't. It was the future. And so today, an entrepreneur can tap into such power. If you realize that on the cloud, you can gain access to 100 computers or 1,000 computers, which you used to have been, you have to be the chairman of MIT or the chairman of IBM to have access to such power. Now you have that power. We're living in a day and age where it's really the passion that you have, the vision that you have, that's the most important thing. The tools, they're there. You can gain access to them if you want. And they're the tools that allow you to literally bat at the same level as a government and a large company just 10, 20 years ago.
Just sitting here, you've sort of expanded my own mind. It's like, when most of us create products or services, you're like, okay, can I get, a few hundred customers or can I get 1,000 customers? But you've basically reframed it, said, ask the question, what can I create that will solve a problem for 1 billion people? Because I have the ability to reach 1 billion people if I have a solution that solves a big enough problem. So it's like, take where your brain is focused on solving problems for 1,000 people, and what is the problem that 1 billion people have? Because the ability to access them and distribute to them is at the touch of your fingertips these days. So I hope everybody else finds that same sense of inspiration from what you just said, because it's like, this 10 to the power of 9 idea of, let me think bigger about bigger problems, because I have the ability to address those maybe for the first time in all of human history. An individual. So let's talk to the this whole new generation of entrepreneurs. Either they're just coming out of college and they're new from a sense of their youth, or these are people who've been in the corporate structure for a long time and now they've been liberated and now they need to become and want to become an entrepreneur, take control of their destiny. And they've got the passion. They're willing to be persistent. What other instructions would you give them to get them started, to point them in the right direction? You can't take them all the way, but say, do these 1 or 2 or 3 things, get you started.
So there's one most important thing, period. And I talk to CEO groups about this, as well as graduate students, college students, high school students, which is, do you know what your passion is? And I'm amazed how many people don't. Because if you don't have that passion, you need to go find it. That is the most important thing. Knowing what that fire is in your belly, because ultimately success is not giving up. If you have found that thing which you want to do more than anything in the world, that thing that at 2 a.m. in the morning, when you're exhausted, you're going to push 1 hour more. That thing that after the 8th year of working on, for me, 0G or X Prize, and people are telling you, give it up, it's not going to happen, but you push one more time, that's the one more time that's going to happen. And if you're doing it for the money and not for your passion, not for yourself, you're going to give up before you succeed. And so ultimately, you know, I have 2 16-month-old boys at home. I'm a new dad, and I have one wish for them. One wish. Find that thing which they're passionate about. Doesn't matter what it is, you know, because you can make a career out of anything these days. My good friend Richard Garriott, whose dad was an astronaut, he grew up in Houston where everyone's dad was an astronaut, right? And he literally didn't graduate high school or college. He was a video game geek. He loved creating video games. So guess what happens? He goes and he ends up building 3 massive video game companies, the last one of which earned him enough money to buy a seat to fly to the space station privately and become the first second-generation astronaut. You know, that passion drove him to create enough wealth and ultimately fulfill his destiny in a way that was so non-traditional. But that's fine.
So I just want to ask, those that are watching, they go, okay, I think I know what my passion is, but it's not really stoked enough to push them through. Or I don't know what my passion is. So we get that this is the key ingredient. Do you have any suggestions about what somebody needs to do to go figure that out?
So when I think about this and advise folks to where can you find your passion, a couple of different ideas to share. Number one, what is it you love to do as a kid, right? When you were unconstrained by the pressures of society or work, what is it you love to do? For me, it was, you know, I dreamed about space. I've held that passion since my childhood. And I've now had a chance to really revisit that passion in a way that every day I feel like a kid. Every day I'm playing, I'm not working. The second thing is, if someone came to you and said, you had $1 billion, go change the world, what would you do with it? I mean, what would you do with it if you literally had all the money you wanted? How would you go change the world? What do you consider the most important things to change?
I like that framework.
And those 2 areas for me give me the context to think about it, because there's plenty of money out there. There's plenty of technology. It's really hooking that up to that drive, that visioneering that people have the ability to go and do.
Well, if anybody was inspired by this conversation, my recommendation would be that they go pick up the book Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think, because in it, your mind just sort of gets seated and encouraged, and I think it gets expanded, and all of a sudden, your inner creativity starts to bubble up, and you know, you start to see ideas, and your ability to address them, I think, is encouraged by reading what's inside that book. So thank you very much for creating it.
Thank you. I guarantee you this is relevant to everybody's life and business right now.
There you go. So thank you for your contribution to success. But most importantly, thank you for your contribution to humanity.
My
It's been a
pleasure.
delight.
Thanks.
Success Magazine Audio, copyright Success Media, all rights reserved.